Tor. Yeah, happened to be one of the few people I know who was a close personal friend of Tor's. Lived a mile or so away from him. I can, if you want me to tell you how I first saw him and lead into the famous story he told. I was at the Town Theater in San Fernando, 3 big hits for 15 cents, Kitty Matinee, which was horror movies every week for most of my childhood in the early 60s, which was astounding. And one day the Unearthly was on a triple bill with like Screaming Skull and something else. And the theater's totally sold out about 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, and all of a sudden Tor appears in the back of the theater, totally unannounced, flashlight on his face. The place just went totally berserk. I mean, I've seen some heated wrestling crowds and stuff, but this thing was just, if they could have torn down the theater, they would have. And he just went down the aisle in front of the screen and back up the aisle and on out, and I was just astounded, and I went up to the lobby and I was like tongue-tied, and I went out and he jumped into some kind of car and he was gone, and I talked to the manager and all that. He was surprised I even knew the Tor's name and all that, And he might have mumbled something to me about he lived somewhere around here. He wouldn't give me too much information. So at that point, I'd seen Tor in my hometown, which was kind of amazing. Next time I actually was able to meet him was that famous day in 1961 at Forey Ackerman's, when the first time I got invited to the mansion, and Tor was the main guest that day. The people there were like Ib Melchior, Ray Russell. That was also the day I got to talk quite a bit with Ed Wood, and he accused me of being the first Ed Wood fan. And I was the only one there at this thing that seemed to be interested in who Ed Wood was, because, the coverage at that point was Night of the Ghouls and Plan 9 and some of that, but Plan 9 had still never seen the light of day, but I was like astounded that Ed Wood was there. He was dressed normally and all that. And then Tor showed up, and it was amazing. I took that one photo of him you see in that article I wrote, I Remember Tor, and I tried to talk to him as much as I could, and somehow these rumors were starting to fall together, of him having something to do with my hometown. Then I forget who told me, but it suddenly started coming to me because of the fact that Plan 9 took place in San Fernando, and that Carl Johnson, Tor's son, I finally realized had been a former chief of police out there. So then I found out, I don't know why it took me most of, up to the age of 11 or 12 to get this all figured out, but I found out that Carl Johnson lived right around the corner from me. So then I started going home from school every day passing that house just to, see what would happen. And after about 3 or 4 months of this, being very diligent, sure enough, there one day there's Tor sitting in front of Carl's house. And I went, oh man, he really is here. So I went over and just walked up and started talking to him, and then we found out that he lived up a mile or so away in that infamous house where they shot Lugosi's final scenes in Plan 9, which has finally been at least verified. It's on Adelphia Street, I think, something like that. House is still there. So then we got into the mode of going every week or so on our bicycles up to Tor's place, either visiting him at the house or this junk store where we used to hang around. And he'd, regale us with stories of Sweden and wrestling and all the various things, and particularly the infamous anecdote, which is the one of Lugosi. He basically, as Tor remembered it, they were on the road promoting Black Sleep, obviously, and being put up in flea bag hotels and everything, and they were in some forgotten small town, probably in the Midwest or something, probably a spook show added to the Black Sleep, Stars in Person. He said they were on about the 3rd or 4th floor of this flea bag type of place, and he said Lugosi was very moody and depressed and probably strung out the whole time, as Tor would tell the story. It's hard to, he was on some kind of dope or something the whole time. Bela, he is, he was just really going fast. So he said in the middle of the night, Lugosi was just acting to the point where he was almost suicidal, and he was like eyeing the window like he was getting ready to jump or to hang himself or something. So Tor said he just got fed up with listening to Lugosi's whinings and, sitting around totally disheveled and possibly, I don't know, going to the bathroom in his pants or, just whatever you do when you're a total wreck. So he said finally in the middle of the night he got fed up with it, so he went over and he grabbed Lugosi by the scruff, of the neck, went up to the window, held him out of the window and said, "Is this what you want, you stinking hunky?" And he said Lugosi just finally started shaking and looked up with him like with tears in his eyes, and he went, no, bring me back in, big man, So Tor reeled him back in and set him down on the bed, and Lugosi admitted he didn't want to really check out at that particular moment. And so they went on and did the tour. And that was my obviously favorite Tor story of all time.